friends, and welcome to The Sacred Space. We are your hosts, Diana Green Dragon
and Kimmit Ra. Episode 2, it's our self-care episode, also known as...
Bitch, don't harsh my vibe. What is it?
Yeah, bitch, don't kill my vibe.
Bitch, don't kill my
vibe. In this episode, we want to talk about what's happening in the world, and we want to talk about ways in which we deal with what's happening in the greater hypocrisy that we call America at this moment.
America! So today's July 1st, 2018, and the current America, as I see it, breaks my heart. It breaks my heart as a female, as an American, as a mother, definitely as a pagan, definitely as somebody with reproductive organs. Even if they don't work, even if they're just like little saladitos now, I have them. So I weep for my sisters. There's a lot of fucked up shit happening in our country right now, and so we wanted to talk today about how the daily impact of societal fucked upness and everything that's happening, how we independently navigate through it.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to turn a blind eye and to ignore the few courageous people on Facebook who are open about posting things. It's very easy to look away at headlines to things that are a little less benign and focus on fashion and color and music, which is all very necessary. But we have some real world problems right now. And as witches of color, we need to do something about this. This is our people that we're talking about right now.
Exactly. And I think that, again, as witches of color, we have a different lens that we get to look at the world through, if that makes sense.
Amen.
We are representing those groups that have been marginalized for so long, where it's our ancestors and sometimes it's our own family that have been immigrants or even refugees that have had to come to this country to seek a better life. I remember growing up and, having to recite the Pledge of Allegiance and what to talk about, what the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness and justice. And, thinking about this American dream, and it just breaks my heart. And I know from our pre-combo that this is breaking your heart too. This harsh reality that we are valuing a person's belief and their agenda more than we're valuing people.
Yeah. So in the shittiness of my youth, in that rebellious spirit that we all carry, true story. So pretty much up until the time that Obama became president, I had a really hard time saying the Pledge of Allegiance. And when I was forced to do it, I grew up going to a Catholic school for 9 years. I hated it. They hated me. It was mutual. They got paid. And it's not that the Catholic religion is anything bad. It's just that I was not prepared at the time. I didn't have the type of support system to maybe help me view this Catholic education in a different light. So my child self approached it with a lot of anger, with a lot of resentment, with a lot of fuck you, Sex Pistols kind of rage. Then I grew up and I recognized, oh man, it really was a lost opportunity in some regard. And not just for me, but for the various teachers that I had when I had questions and whatnot. But I grew up an immigrant. I didn't understand what that meant. I just knew that I was always terrified of the police. And I just, I feel like there's something that we all need to do. And I've lost my train of thought because I'm staring at your classes, which is really, it shouldn't have taken that little amount of glitter in my life to throw me off track.
But basically, you were starting to tell us a story about your youth
yes,
and growing up as an immigrant.
Thank you for remembering what I was talking about. Okay, so I had such a hard time saying the fucking Pledge of Allegiance because I thought it was so hypocritical. So for the longest time, when we got to the part of life, liberty, and justice, under my breath, or sometimes not so under my breath, the following words would always follow: to life, liberty, and justice to all white males. That was always there because I genuinely felt that those are the only people that ever got to really to live that liberty and justice. It wasn't white women; it was just white males. And when Obama took presidency, it was like, wow, you know what? All of this, all of this campaigning, all of this, the community groups that, I've belonged to over the years, like all of these things, all of these little grassroots organizations, they really, really did work. We finally everybody of similar like mind, finally elected somebody of fucking color, somebody whose words made sense. Like the agenda seemed way too good to be true. And it wasn't like we weren't drinking Kool-Aid, but it was like, it was very genuine. And it was at that time that I was able to soften up my heart, and it really became life, liberty, and justice for all. And that's, I think, for the first time that I really was able to see myself as a genuine American. I didn't feel like I was intruding on somebody's America. It's like, no, bitch, this is my fucking America.
And
now we're here.
And yes, I know, was it like...
Bitch, don't fuck up my vibe!
I think it was maybe a month or so ago, it's probably about 2 or 3 months ago now, that, Childish Gambino came out with that video, This is America, which was super controversial.
Yes, oh my gosh, can I tell you that I just recently discovered it and I fucking love it. I'm in love with him.
But doesn't it trip you out, though?
Oh, most definitely.
Because when you look at the imagery, your first thoughts are, wow, this is crazy, and the amount of stuff that's happening in these videos is a lot, but at the same time, it's really reflective or representative of who we are and what's happening in America, where we are valuing guns more than we're valuing people's lives, where, he has these nuances that are in the video that are specifically throwing back to the idea that distraction happens in the world, so we won't pay attention to all the violence and all the madness.
Exactly.
Because, and
you've got this great synchronizing dancing, and you've got all of these things that are happening in the background.
Yes.
And it's just part of the environment. This is just what you do. You just chug along happily, dancing to this beat, recognizing that, you're speaking of this America, and this America is one where there is a lot of gun violence.
Yes.
There is a lot of racism. Our current America is one that a lot of us, we just said, I said it today in conversation, I can't believe that this is America. It's not supposed to be America. And you were like, but it is.
And it is. It's true. Something that you mentioned beforehand was talking about, how this is our near recent, past or recent history. Some people don't realize, and I think we mentioned this to you all in our pilot episode. We live in the Inland Empire, San Bernardino County, and for those of you that don't know our history, please Google us. You have to keep in mind that there were concentration camps here in San Bernardino, where it was I think it was the Chinese at the time, but let's say Asian Americans, forcibly Asian Americans, were the ones that were here that were building the railroads that have gone through San Bernardino and through most of this country. And it's like, this is less than 60 years ago that this was here in our own city.
That's fucking wild.
And then here we are. And what's happening to these kids that are being separated from their parents that are undocumented, not illegal, undocumented. And, these kids are being thrown in cages, and they're given these, like, tinfoil looking, blankets that are there to keep them warm, but they can't hug each other. They get yelled at if they cry. These kids are put in a situation where they don't know what's going on, and their parents, having their kids ripped out of their arms.
Yeah, literally. And everything has its own language. Law speak is one. Medicine is another. Every subgroup of everything has its own language. And it's hard for adults to navigate through it when you don't have the proper education on it. And not all of us do. I will never have car language, let's say.
Right.
I know how to sign a receipt like a mofo, but don't fucking tell me what's under the hood because I have these mental blocks and I'm okay with it.
Right.
And when it comes to there's just so much information and so much misinformation when it comes to so many things that are political. I can't even imagine being in another country, not speaking the language, and having my child taken away from me, and having there be nobody to help me. Now, I can appreciate the argument of, well, then don't go to a country illegally. Guess what, fucker? I came to this fucking country maybe because my child's life was being threatened. Like, I came to this country because there's such a thing as asylum.
Yes.
And sometimes the bureaucracy of filing said paperwork for asylum isn't part of my reality because I actively have gangbangers that are coming down my ranch that are going to try to rape my loved ones and threaten to kill me.
Right.
So it's much easier for me to take the gamble, a big fucking gamble, and getting my family a few sandwiches and some water and saying, let's chance it. Let's see what happens if we ask for asylum once we touch on their land.
Right. So to piggyback off that, I just have to throw this out there. I mean, if we're having this conversation, let's throw the gauntlet down now. Let's give a shout out to the colonizers who came here to a land that wasn't theirs in the first place.
Damn straight.
And then suddenly we basically forcibly removed people from their own land, and then suddenly now they're illegal in their own country.
Yeah.
You know, I understand it, and I don't want people to think that I'm unpatriotic. That is not it. I am extremely patriotic. But I can't stand the hypocrisy that's happening because, you know, if we stand or if we rise or if we're supposed to symbolize the ideal of what a country should be, how can we do this? Yeah. How can we not have a soul and literally feel nothing when children are being ripped away from their parents? Yeah. You know, who wants to break up a family? Something that it made me think about is when we look at our kids that are in foster care or that may be orphaned or, you know, those kids that are displaced from their families. When you think about that system and how, you know, we think it's a perfect system, but it's not. And how many kids get lost because they age out, because us as people, we don't want a kid that's older than, let's say, 5 years old because they're too much work.
They
you know what I mean?
Cuteness. They're not shiny anymore.
Exactly. So, you know, I look at that and then I look at this situation and it's like, these people wanted to be with their kids. They wanted to have a whole family. And here we are who think having kids as a luxury can just rip them away, just like there's some type of accessory that can be replaced. Or, you know, I think about taking dogs and putting them in a kennel for the weekend, or when you're done, we just put them there, and we know in a short amount of days that they're going to be executed. But these are children, you know.
Children who are scared, children who don't understand why they got separated, children who at a very fundamental age, all of their little energy centers are being attacked in very ugly, ugly ways. This is huge impact for post-traumatic stress. We don't have a system currently to be able to file all of these people through and get them to their homes. So I'm pretty confident that there's not going to be any kind of fucking system to be able to help them as they transition. One of the last episodes we talked about the different energetic stressors that happen as a result of tragedies that affect us. You know, here in the San Bernardino area, we had a shooting, a terrorist attack, and how we really, as a community, there aren't a lot of things in place, or as a whole, energy workers and medicine workers and people of science and people of knowledge come together and say, okay, everybody here was negatively impacted. You know, we're all scared, and that's okay. How do we move forward from this? So we've currently not experienced positive feedback from events like that. Mm-hmm. So when things are already broken, like it is in this whole, you know, rounding up of children, that's just going to be another little generation of people that are just going to have extra problems that they're going to need to try to process.
So I'm going to take away a little bit because I think you said that the thing there, what is it that we can do? What are ways or what are some self-care things that we can do to deal with this? As you say, both of us as practitioners, I know I have some things that I do. Right now, we're sitting in my library slash studio, and we have incense lit. We have some incense lit. I'm not gonna say the name because we don't got no sponsorship, but I will say it's a nice incense blend that is supposed to trigger the different sensory areas based on your chakras. But Diana, what are some things that you do, or what are some ideas that you think that we could use to help to unplug?
For us at home, what we do is we talk about it because, like we were discussing earlier, it's so easy to let this be a passive problem. Be like, oh man, yeah, that kind of sucks, and just let it go. In a perfect world, or I can't even say a perfect world, because life's pretty fucking awesome, independently, aside from all of the, societal garbage. But just become aware. What I'm doing at home with my kiddo is we're becoming aware of the problem, and currently finding organizations where I can donate money to because I don't have time to go out currently and protest or to help organize community or do anything like that. I would like to, but I also have this other very real commitment to my 2 jobs, to raising a teenage daughter, to doing all of these other things. So the best thing that I can do right now is educate myself, arm myself with knowledge, and then give monetarily to organizations where there are people who do have that ability to be able to donate time to help with these things.
So I want to go back a little bit. So when you first heard the news about what's happening with families being separated, what was one thing that you kind of did to prepare yourself, or how did that impact your day?
Well, when I very first heard about it, I thought it was I was in total shock and disbelief. And I honestly thought that this was some kind of heightened story. Maybe somebody had said that this was going to be something that was going to start happening, and it got fantasticized, and it really wasn't going to happen, because how are you really going to do this thing? So that was my very first thing. So when I first learned of it, I thought it was some fantastic story that really wasn't going to come to fruition. Days later, as I'm realizing, oh, holy shit, this thing's legit, and I'm seeing videos of agents coming into people's homes, taking people away, crying children, separating, parents trying to maintain a level of decorum so that, they're not seen as whatever. Just mass confusion. And all I could do was just be confused alongside them. Like, I didn't understand how, they're not, I can point out crackheads right now if you really are dying to arrest someone, this person over here is embezzling, this person over here is selling drugs, this person over here is a rapist. Why are they still hanging out here? Why is this happening? I was so confused. And then after that, just continuing to see the stories, pretty much it was just more of the same personal rhetoric at our home, which is, okay, we just need to arm ourselves with knowledge, because our current America with our current POTUS is scary for people like me, people who have darker skin, people of female gender, people of thought, people who are woke. We are not liked in this current America, and it's scary. So just knowledge, just trying to understand what everything is. That's how we're arming ourselves, is just trying to understand and trying to remain soft at heart.
Right.
Because it's so easy to get wrapped up in anger, because there is a lot to be angry for.
Right. For myself, I mean, it's been similar. Recently I was telling you I was at a conference. For those of you, if you don't remember, I'm in seminary right now, so I'm on my path to ministry. currently, have been in pagan ministry for a while, but doing a traditional religion. And at this conference, you would not believe the amount of people that were just sitting there that are so heartbroken and just are in disbelief because it's like, this cannot be real. How can we as people of faith have faith when we see something like this happening? And, this conference happened that I was at was out of state. And it was very real knowing that something like this could happen. Days before our conference had happened, there was a police-involved shooting. And so there was this heightened presence. You know what I mean? And it's like, again, these things are happening and there's not enough news about it. And then when we get news, the news gets so saturated with all this BS that's out there that it's like, okay, what do I focus on? Do I focus on, knowing that these kids are being taken away? And is that a real story? But, then again, there's this police shooting that's happened that it's not getting a lot of media coverage. But then we, are getting caught up because then we hear that Kim Kardashian is going to the White House because she wants to find someone who's better qualified to be pardoned by the POTUS, while at the same time we have stories about his tweets that are coming out and, just the absurdity of language that he's using to address people, and it's like it never ends. And, being at that conference, again, there's a certain amount of anxiety that just builds up. And, thinking that, what can we do? Are we helpless? And it was interesting to engage in conversation with other people that are religious leaders and people that are ordained and were not ordained and just lay leaders who are all there because we know that our denomination is based on looking at how can we create positive change in the world. And at the same time, dealing with and trying to triage that heartbreak. Because I think we've all had that dream that, we may be coming from humble beginnings, but it's leading to something. We're all fighting for something. And if that's justice, then we're all fighting for justice. And not to side note or sidetrack, but that's one thing that I think hurts too, is when we hear how our language is being used to weaponize and to hurt us.
Yeah.
When we talk about justice, you hear this bad name or dirty name of being a social justice warrior.
Yeah.
It's like, how is it looking for justice? Now, again, that's not saying who's right and who's wrong, but justice. So whatever the overall right thing is to do, how can that be weaponized and turned against us where it's almost like it's a slur? It's like, you social justice warrior, you this.
Yeah.
You did X, Y, Z. Or the world is in such a disarray because you social justice warriors, you come in, you don't know all of the facts, although all the facts that are out there are fake news. So how can anyone really know what the facts are?
Yeah.
And
you brought up a really good point about the anxiety, because there is so much freaking anxiety. I have anxiety to begin with. I'm having a bad eyelash day, and all of a sudden I'm fucking triggered. That's just me. Not to the point where it's debilitating, but it's just one of my many things, and that's okay. I work with it. But there's so much anxiety, and how do you pick and choose your battles?
Right.
We want to, as most of us pagans, we want to help everyone.
yes.
We're healers at some level.
Yes.
Even if it's just personal healing where you understand that that you yourself have the ability to transcend and to absorb information and to just to have so much knowledge in your beautiful brains and to have these great healthy bodies and have this incredible alignment with the universe. If that's your thing, that's great. And if you extend out to helping other people and being of service to others, that's freaking awesome. But how do you pick and choose when it seems like everything is so overwhelming? And like you said, the information that we have, just trying to file through all of the information is anxiety ridden. And then feeling like your efforts aren't enough brings along its own anxiety.
Yes.
So how do we break from chronically feeling anxious, and instead of spinning wheels like a hamster on a cage, what do we do to actively have personal change that can impact society, that will then transform into impact into all of these things that we carry in our hearts and minds.
Right. I wrote a sermon and I've delivered it a couple times. It's called Waiting to Exhale. And in my sermon, the whole thing is about this anxiety and this anxious feeling. And one of the things that I recommend is, although there's all this anxiety and things that are happening, it's still important to take time for yourself.
Yes. We keep coming back to self-care.
Yes. And I think it's just so important. And I feel like even from your perspective, giving us that medical edge, we acknowledge and we know that for our souls to be okay and our bodies to be okay, sometimes we have to pause.
Yes.
And it's hard to say that because, again, like you said, we want to heal. We want to be able to help everybody. But at the same time, we have to take a moment for ourselves to process, what are the things that are happening so that we can be mentally ready and physically ready. Because I know occasionally people will stop eating when that anxiety kicks in. But we have to be able to prepare ourselves for whatever's coming. And with the way the media is playing off these different sensationalized stories, it just keeps that anxiety building. And you get to a point where you feel like you can't breathe. And, and what, like, are we just going to tap out? Like, would life be easier if we just tap out? But it's like you can't, it's more about taking time and at the same time not getting stuck in that place.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like that's something that has happened quite a bit too is, you don't want to overdo your self-care. Maybe that means picking a day out of the week to be your designated day off. And when I say day off, I mean from everything. That's no thinking about work. That's not thinking about chores, but literally taking time to just reset. Giving your body a reboot, whether that means you're just going to take yourself out for lunch or a nice dinner, but maybe that also means not paying attention to any social media.
Yeah, taking time away from the phone. I can't remember where I recently read this quote, and it's something to the effect of one of our social leaders, when he realized, like it was an especially ostentatious day with news and hatred that was going on, he knew that he had to spend extra time meditating that day to be able to go on with everything that he needed to do. And it's very important because you can't fill others' cups with your cup if it's empty.
Yes.
And we've heard this time and time again in a lot of different ways, but it's absolutely true. How can you help educate and open up hearts and minds of those around you if you don't have as much information as you feel, as current information as you have?
Right.
If you are not properly rested, how can you actually go to your 9 to 5 and be a proper employee so that you can bring home the money to pay the rent, to get the groceries and do all of those things?
Right.
If you don't get enough sleep, we suffer the consequences of that. If we're not hydrating well, our poor bodies suffer, and our bodies are just, not only do our bodies suffer, but our bodies are so beautiful that they will allow your mind to push through everything.
Yes.
And your bodies are always the ones that seem to suffer a lot of the fallback of a lot of the things that we, try to take shortcuts on. But educating yourself, caring for yourself, really being as genuine to yourself is important, because when you have that in your life, then you know that all of these challenges, you'll be able to put them in the best perspective that you can for you. And maybe the best perspective that you can for you is adding thoughts and prayers for all of these different causes. There's nothing wrong with that. We need positive energy in this area because God knows there's enough ugliness directed towards everything.
But can I say I am triggered by thoughts and prayers?
Thoughts and prayers.
I am so triggered by that because I feel like that's the main thing that people say, I'm sending my thoughts or I'm adding you to my prayers.
Okay.
But what can we do that
isn't passive?
Yes. Because, okay, self-care, that's not passive because you actually get to take a
Oh no,
moment for
self-care
yourself.
is super important.
So that's not passive. So you get to take care of yourself. But what is something else that we can do that's really going to make a difference? I know you said money.
Yeah,
You can
money.
donate.
How about not taking a Netflix binge challenge and getting off the couch and going down to your local community center and gathering with other people who are also affected by this, hearing what the community is doing about this problem. That's an important thing that can be done.
That's true. You also made me think about there's another local group that I'm working with right now, and one of the things that we're looking at is talking to your local representatives. Like, know who these people are that say they are representing you. Like, who's your congressperson? Who's the mayor of your city? Who's the police chief of your city? Is there an ICE office in your city?
Oh, that's a good
And
one.
if there is, do you know who works there? There are so many people and so many businesses that are in our cities, and we get to know the person that's at our grocery store.
Yeah.
But how many times are we going out, to find out who are our local politicians? How many times have we asked them what are they doing on their job? We're paying them, but we are not paying attention to them.
Oh,
And right?
That's a good one.
We are not, and it's about time that we start asking questions.
What do you stand for exactly, and how is your own personal style reflecting upon how you're helping govern the city?
Exactly. Exactly. And I don't think that people are ready for that. One thing that I have noticed is, and you probably remember, but, recently because we had the elections in June, beginning of June, politicians were out and super heavy. Now, here we are almost a month after the election. Where are all those same politicians?
I don't even know.
And I don't think I've heard any of them come out to say anything about this current issue and what they're doing to either help or what are they doing to hinder?
Or even what their stance is. And, like with many things, it's a political hot button. And it would be nice to see who our local representatives are who aren't afraid of saying, hey, this cause, I'm aware of it and I'm impacted by it.
Exactly. And a question that I would have, I think I would want to really ask any of the local politicians, do you have any family that's undocumented? And if you have family that's undocumented, what are you doing to prevent them from being deported? And what are you doing to help them from being separated from the rest of the family? One thing that I do want to throw out there is that many times people think that the only people that are undocumented are from the Latinx community. But I want to make sure that we throw out there that there are many people that are of African descent. There are many Asian Americans that are undocumented.
We have our Middle Eastern brothers and
Yes.
sisters. We have our Romanians. We have pretty much anyone that's not an American. This is America. We are riddled with people from all parts of the world.
Yes.
Because, like you said in an earlier conversation, we've always, as Americans, we've always talked about, how we are, we are the land of the free. Come to us. We will help you. Your dreams can come true here. And that's not proving to be the case.
Right.
Nightmares are happening.
Right. And this is the other thing, maybe this is just some strange vetting process. Because what it seems to be is, we'll take you, but you have to offer something. There has to be some type of exchange. So let's say if you're going to be here, then you have to be the doctors. Or maybe you can be the maids. You'll do the work that we don't want to do.
Which is pretty much what immigrants have done from day one. So I recently hooked up to this Facebook site, and it's Racist History or Racist America. Have you seen that?
I haven't.
It's absolutely awesome. So pretty much, I'm absolutely fascinated by the amount of history I don't know. So I watch silly shows that are very informative, like Drunk History.
Oh, it's hilarious.
It's hilarious, and I had no idea that so many of our ancestors of color, of feminine gender, that really made such an incredible impact, in the forming of this country and of
Yes.
society.
Yes.
And one of these that I recently saw was the history of gynecology. And I had no fucking clue that the father of gynecology, how he got to do all of his experiments and procedures as we know them now, originated when this male doctor would take African slaves and without anesthesia would perform procedures on them because he didn't feel that it was necessary to give them any kind of sedative. It just wasn't worth it because they wanted to see what would happen. And they're performing hysterectomies. They're doing all sorts of horrific types of gynecological procedures on women. They were trying to find a cure for, why do women piss themselves after they give childbirth, Because I guess we didn't have common knowledge of, the uterus is a muscle, everything there is a muscle, and it kind of gets fatigued after hours of labor.
Right.
So they would perform all of these experiments on African slaves.
Oh, wow.
That brought me to tears, and it made my non-existent uterus flip. And it's something that I had to share with my daughter. Like, the shit that we get done yearly for our preventative health, these are the fucking women. These are the women that paid the price for us to not have cervical cancer. It's wild how much history we don't know.
And I don't know if you remember, there was the movie I think that Oprah was producing about, I'm forgetting her last name. It was Henrietta, is it Meeks or Leeks? At press time, I'll just say we don't have her name, but she was the woman where they took the, I think they were maybe cells from her ovaries as well, where they were finding like the cure for cancer, it's the universal cell that they've been using to duplicate and create all these medicines.
Wow. Yeah. According to the Google, Henrietta Lacks was
Lacks. Thank you.
Was an African American woman whose cancer cells are the source of the HeLa cell line, the first immortalized cell line and one of the most important cell lines in medical research.
Thank you for finding that. Yes, but Henrietta Lacks. And again, we're looking at this is America.
This is America.
We are okay as immigrants, and take that how you want. I'm doing quotation marks. But we are fine to be here to be used, to be harvested, to be the doctors because people don't necessarily want that knowledge, or to be the slaves and to be the housekeepers. And, it's, again, we're at a point in America where we should be showing more compassion. We should be really looking for what justice is.
Yes.
And instead, we are raping our country again. We are separating families. We are putting people in positions that we probably wouldn't really wish on our worst enemy. And we've become numb.
And I think that, to take it back to self-care, I think that sometimes it's easy to be dismissive of certain societal things that are occurring because it may not feel like a personal attack. I'm not an immigrant, so this doesn't really affect me, or, wow, that must really suck for them. I feel that when we are able to become aligned with oneself, and when you align yourself with your true, genuine self, and you're able to feel that pulsating vibration of life in every one of your chakra centers that aligns you to the universe, and you're able to expand that heart and that knowledge and recognize that we really are all pulsating as one. We are one human race. And when you have a disconnection to yourself, it's very easy to disconnect yourself from others. And my hopes for myself and for all of you are for this week, or for whatever period of time this is, for you to really open up your heart space, forgive yourself, love yourself, honor your daily practices, stay hydrated, eat proper, get your body moving, honor your to-do list, and tap into the ether and feel the cries of these children, feel the cries of all of the injustice that's there. And, albeit passive, put that energy out in there. Change that energy. Get yourself into a place where these daily practices are habits so that you can separate from your couch, from your home, to get out, to do even an hour a week of meeting other people of like minds, to make those bonds tighter, make them stronger so that you can figure out your own personal solution for how these world events impact you and how you can best contribute to them, whether it's donating money, donating time, coming together with like minds, putting together food drives, clothing drives, whatever it is, something to let those other human beings know that you recognize that they exist, that they are not forgotten, and that you recognize that what's being done to them right now is inherently wrong.
So before we wrap up the show, I think it'd be good if you're able to maybe lead us in a meditation. So what we're going to do is we're going to pause now to give you all an opportunity to light your candles, light your incenses, create your own sacred space, and then we'll be back and we'll wrap up the show with a meditation.
Now sit or stand or lay in a comfortable space. Focus on your breath. Focus on that in-breath going in through your nose, coming out through your mouth. Letting go of all of the chatter. Letting go of all of the muck. We're at this place, and in this time, we're going to align with all that is good and all that is divine. In through your nose and out through your mouth. Feel your body relax and start to feel and listen to the hum. The hum of the universe that surrounds each and every cell. The pulse of the galaxy that exists within the heart. It lives within each breath. Feel the vibration. Acknowledge this pulse. You are one with the universe as you are one with yourself. We acknowledge and call forth the guardians of the south and fire. We ask for your transformative powers. Help us resurrect the things that need to be burned, the destruction. Give to us the spark to bring these things into a new. We call and welcome the elements of west and water. We ask that through this energetic umbilical cord, you fill our hearts with love, compassion. Help us through these trying times and connect us to our family of blood, of energy, of humanity. We call on all that is north and earth. We ask for growth in all of our endeavors. We ask you to find ways to find fruitful solutions to all of the problems that ache our hearts and minds. To the element of east and air, we ask for you to feed our knowledge and to remind us of our not-so-distant past so that we can take this knowledge and create a prosperous future.
Blessed be. And then we acknowledge and we invite our Mother Goddess. I ask Hecate, step forward, Queen of the crossroad of justice of the newly born. We ask that you come and you show us our way. We know that the road may have 3 ways, but you will show us which road is correct for us. You will help lead us to justice. You will help us find solace in the path that we choose. We know that your wisdom will lead us to an answer that is just right for us. Blessed be.
Blessed be. We call on to and acknowledge Quetzalcoatl, our Mesoamerican king, our feathered serpent, giver of life, he who resurrects. Show us the way of the warrior. Show us how to have peaceful behavior during these trying times. Lend to us your spirit, for this battle is heavy. This battle should not shed blood. We call on to you. Lend us your strength. Give us your guidance. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
As you feel the love of those who came before you, and you continue to feel the pulse of the universe, send to it your worries, send to it your fears. Breathe in that universal energy that transforms. Feel your body, your soul, your heart, your being grow stronger. Feel the rage transform into compassion and understanding. Transform that ignorance into knowledge and power, into a fierceness and conviction, the one that's needed to honor yourself and all of your brethren that you feel each and every pulse of the verse. Feel your lungs expand with love. Feel the cosmic love welcoming and embracing you. It's been waiting for you. And now that you are aligned, you'll be able to stand on solid ground and forge ahead with the spirit of the warrior, with the fierceness of the mother, and with all the attributes of all that is life. When you are ready, become present of your physical self. Wiggle those toes. Move those legs. Acknowledge that fire in your belly. Take a deep inhale of breath and expand your lungs and heart. With a big sigh, acknowledge that throat, that communication, that power. Come up through your third eye and acknowledge your brothers and sisters who are on the same journey. And let this love spill out through your crown and envelop you. There's lots of work to be done, and we are ready. Always in peace, harming none, for the benefit of all. Blessed be.
Blessed be. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Sacred Space. We hope that you have learned some things, felt our rage, felt our sorrow, feel our hope, and feel the joy. This has been one of those tough episodes, but I think we made it through. Until we meet again, I am the Rev Raw.
Rev Raw, I am Diana. Blessings to you all. Have a fabulous week.
Have a fabulous week.
Or, whatever time until we do this again.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.